Disasters happen and most people don't live to tell the tale. But when they do, 100% of the time, it's divine intervention. In 2009, the aviation world was astonished when Jesus took the wheel of Flight 1549 through Captain Sully and his co-pilot. That day, 2 airline pilots had to use the Hudson River in New York City as the runway for an emergency landing. 150 passengers narrowly escaped death when Flight 1549 crash-landed on the Hudson River. But how? Let's find out. On January 15, 2009, US Airways Flight 1549 was a routine flight from LaGuardia Airport in New York to Charlotte Douglas Airport in North Carolina. The plane made its first flight in 1999 and is 9 years, 7 months old. The captain in command of the Airbus A320 was 57-year-old Chesley Sullenberger, known as Sully, an expert on aviation safety and a former glider pilot. He is a former fighter pilot who had been an airline pilot since leaving the US Air Force in 1980. By this fateful day, Sully had already logged over 19,000 total flight hours, including almost 5,000 in flying Airbus A320. His co-pilot, Officer Jefferyskiles, was 49 with over 15,000 flight hours. Although this is his first Airbus A320 assignment since he qualified to fly it, there were 150 passengers and 3 cabin crew members on board. When Flight 1549 begins its takeoff on the runway, Jeffrey is flying the plane while Sully monitors. Around 3:24 p.m., the flight leaves the airport of LaGuardia. It's disturbing how something so life-threatening and scary can happen so fast. Before takeoff, the LaGuardia Airport's control tower cleared the flight. All the equipment worked perfectly and the weather was great with a 10-mile visibility, which gave the cockpit crew a sweet view of the Hudson. But very soon, the Hudson River will be their only hope for survival. Captain Sully has spent 40 years of his career flying planes, and this flight was just like any other routine. For the first few minutes, the cockpit's crew were spending time gaining altitude and performing a series of necessary in-flight tasks. The flight was climbing towards cruising altitude in the air. Then at 3:27 p.m., just 3 minutes after takeoff, it happened. With the plane moving at 316 feet per second, Captain Sully noted a flock of Canada geese just a moment before the plane struck the birds at an altitude of over 2,800 and 4.5 miles northwest of LaGuardia. The collision could not be avoided by the pilots, and the captain was only able to utter one word: birds. Before impact, they hopelessly stared at the large birds that filled their view. Immediately after the birds' encounter, both engines' fan and core speed started to decelerate. Passengers heard loud bangs, and those sitting in the window seats saw flames coming out of the engines. As the smell of aviation fuel filled the aircraft, some passengers thought to themselves, "This is it. It's over." However, realizing that both engines had shut down, the captain takes control while the first officer works the checklist for engine restart. Sully understood there was no way the aircraft could end up somewhere on a runway unharmed. Unfortunately, all attempts to restart the engine failed, but then the co-pilots managed to at least turn on the auxiliary power units. Without this, the aircraft would have been uncontrollable. The pilots wouldn't be able to go left or right, up or down, and the plane would immediately fall out of the sky. With the auxiliary power units on, the plane was still climbing up, but slowly. After reaching a height of 3,000 feet, the airplane began a gliding descent with a speed of up to 240 miles per hour, and at 3:28 p.m., it had already descended 1,600 feet. It was a horrifying scene which required immediate action. Captain Sully had already sent out a Mayday distress call after the plane lost its engine power.
This is Cactus 1539. Hit birds through lost thrust on both engines, returning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Traffic controller Patrick Haddon ordered the airport tower to halt all departures and told Captain Sully to head for runway 13.
Cactus 15.9, turn left heading 270. Cactus 1529. If we can get it for you, do you want to try to land runway 13?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
Alright, Cactus 15.9. It's going to be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Cactus 15.9, runway 4 is available if you want to make left traffic to runway 4.
I'm not sure we make any runway. What's over to our right? Anything in New Jersey? Maybe Teterboro?
Okay, yeah, off your right side is Teterboro Airport. Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Cactus 1529, turn right 280, you can land runway 1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be in the Hudson.
Terrain. Pull up. Pull up.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus?
Pull up.
Sully realized the plane wouldn't be able to make it back to the airport. Patrick couldn't believe his ears and didn't want to accept the terrifying truth of landing on the Hudson River. He tried to find a way to get the plane to the runway, but at 3:29 p.m., Captain Sully repeated his words, and this time he sounded even more certain. The plane was going to end up on the river. Captain Sully was ready to sacrifice the plane to save the lives of the passengers and crew. The only place that would be wide and smooth enough to land a heavy plane descending at immense speed was the Hudson River. After realizing this, the captain made an announcement sounding confident, and this is what he said.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
Immediately after this, the cabin crew shouted further instructions for the passengers and asked them to stay calm, brace, stay down, and prepare to evacuate. The pilot's attention was only on the descent. The plane flew less than 900 feet over the George Washington Bridge, while the co-pilot was calling out the airspeed and altitude of the plane. The cockpit was filled with warnings repeated by a computerized voice.
Too low. Terrain. Too low. Terrain. Terrain. Pull up. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up.
And then, the aircraft dipped into the river, but miraculously, it stayed afloat almost serenely on the surface of the river. Within seconds after the ditching, the captain opened the cockpit door and gave the order to evacuate. The cabin crew started evacuating the passengers through the 4 overwing window exits and into an inflatable slide deployed from the right door, while other passengers jumped onto rafts. Earlier, the air traffic controller contacted the Coast Guard and asked them to prepare for assisting with the rescue. So after just 4 minutes of the river landing, the first rescue boat began to arrive. But panic had set in and some passengers opened one of the rear doors which couldn't be sealed again. Water started to fill the plane through this door as well as through a hole in the fuselage. The water level was rising fast and the cabin crew was urging the passengers to climb over the seats and move forward. It wasn't an easy task, but eventually everyone got out, and after checking the cabin twice, Captain Sully confirmed that the aircraft was empty. Air in the Hudson River was cold with temperature of -7 degrees Celsius and 5 degrees Celsius respectively. Some people had to stand in the river to be rescued since some of the inflatable slides were partially submerged in the river. Some were standing on the wings wearing life vests, and some found the wing of the plane to be overcrowded and swam to the boats. Other passengers feared the plane would explode and swam away from it. The rescue boats began to take people on board, starting with those who were crammed up on the wings of the plane. The last person was rescued at 3:55 p.m. It is no surprise this was dubbed as the miracle on the Hudson River. The plane landed on a river with no casualties. All the passengers and crew members survived. Only 5 passengers had serious injuries, and 78 people received treatment for hypothermia and minor injuries. But it didn't end there. When the authorities investigated, they confirmed the plane had lost thrust after the collision with the birds. The authorities used flight simulators to test if it would have been possible for the plane to return to LaGuardia Airport safely. Only 7 of 13 simulated planes returned to LaGuardia successfully. However, this was unrealistic. A 35-second delay was inserted in the next simulation to reflect real-world circumstances. None of the simulated planes returned to LaGuardia. The board ruled that Captain Sully made the right decision. On January 22, 2009, all the aircraft crew members got Master's Medals, which is rarely given in the world of aviation. Those who took part in the rescue operation were awarded as well. In September 2016, the Warner Brothers released the movie Sully, Miracle on the Hudson, based on the events of that unique flight. Tom Hanks starred as Captain Sully in this movie, and it detailed everything that happened. It's such a relief when people survive ordeals that end as tragedies. That is the end of today's survival story. What did you think about this story? I can't wait to see your thoughts down in the comments below. We have more videos like this for you and much more coming your way. Kindly stick around by hitting the subscribe button. If you found this video interesting, kindly give it a like. I'll be waiting for you in my other videos. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.